Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I call to order this work session of the Hillsboro School District Board of Directors. Before we begin, we would like to provide some important information about interpretation services. Please remember to speak clearly and directly into microphones at a moderate pace. Please do not speak over one another so that interpreters can accurately convey your message. Thank you for your cooperation. First agenda item is the Native American Parent Advisory Committee with Francesca, and we're having dinner, and so welcome. And we're going to have a few minutes to eat our dinner and talk to each other.
Good evening, board and everyone. I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing our TOSA, who works closely as point to supporting our Native American, Alaska Native Parent Advisory Group, Barb Frankham. And she's going to introduce us to three of our community members that help work at providing spaces and places for our students and families who identify with this identity marker in our community. With us today is Jenny Sanchez. Jenny and I go way back. Her kids were Astros. Yay, Astros. At Daria. And we have Lori here. And so I'm going to let Barb go ahead and take this over and give us some formal introductions. And then we're going to get into a presentation. And then at the end, if you have any questions for the advisory committee, you're welcome to ask them at that time. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us here. I am Barb Frankham, like she said. I've been a part of the Native American PAC community for 3 years now as the TOSA coordinator. We have Maria Oliva, who is our chairperson, I almost lost the word there, chairperson of our committee board here with us. We have, like you said, Jenny Sanchez. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Maria Oliva. I am standing room and 3 affiliated of North Dakota. So Mandana, Rickaron, Hadassah. I only have one child now.
One child in the school district.
Yes.
Ohio. I am Jenny Sanchez. I am a member of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde and a descendant of the Confederate Tribes of Celeste. I have one child over at Century High School. I have one child over at Oak Street Transition Program.
Good evening. My name is Daria Martin Big. I'm a tribal enrolled member. I have a student enrolled in the PCC college program, and then freshman and Atwood. She's currently enrolled in online studies, and I'm just assisting with any projects that come up and involved with all research.
So as our parent advisory committee, this is so we have been in HSC since 2007. This is a current picture of last year's powwow. As of right now, we are our enrollment has dropped for the Title VI forms. We're down to 113, but we still represent about 48 different tribes from across the United States. And we are providing community and cultural growth for the Native American and Alaska Native students of HSD. In our school district, we have over 200 students who have, that number, I'm sorry, incorrect, but we have over 200 students who have tribal identification or tribal, are part of a tribal community. It's just one of those situations where it has been difficult for our families and many Native families to get their tribal ID membership and be recognized through that Title VI form. So we do not just exclude them from our program. Some of the things that we have done, in the past, Native drumming and dancing classes, youth movement for middle school students, activities. I get notices out for the Native American Community Nights when they have those. I think they have them twice a year. We've done a community powwow over at Wingspan. I'm going to talk about some changes throughout this year, and then graduation gifts for our seniors. Some of those pictures up there represent, there was an assembly over at Liberty High School last year. And those three girls up at the top are all from the same family, and they helped organize some dancers to come do a performance of Native dance for Liberty High School last year. We have our drum instructor down in the bottom corner, Carol Cole. And then we have a student who went on the youth movement field trip down to UFO last year, and our science program, which Lori's daughter was able to participate in a few of those sessions, learning how to use technology in connection with some history and culture of Native drumming and Native flute making, or Native drumming, Native flute, moving all the way into fishing and canoeing. So they were adopted by one of our former parents to help with that culture. Celebrations, this is kind of highlighting some of the things that we accomplished last year. Not accomplished, but we had families participating in. We did have 23 Indigenous students graduate in 24, and 10 out of the 13 Title VI students that were officially in the Title VI program were graduates. And the Makey Makey STEM class was a very big success that we're going to start that back up in April. And then there was a community powwow. I think I have a slide about this here. There we go. I would like Jenny, if you don't mind, to talk about the spending frenzy just a little bit, which I thought was, the spending frenzy was a huge deal for our high schoolers to learn about finances. And this is
So the spending frenzy took place over at Northwest Regional ESD office, where we brought in some students, and they were able to learn how to manage money. And so we were able to give them, we used NAIA. They came out and did this project with them. Kids got a stack of money. They learned how to pay their taxes. They had to go around and see if they had enough money to purchase an apartment or rent an apartment or buy a home. They were able to partner with someone if they wanted a roommate, and then they had to go buy groceries. At the end, they had to learn how to make sure it totaled up to what their earnings were. And it was really great to see 3 school districts come together and work as a team in building relationships and learning how to utilize funds, and really ultimately understanding what the real world is going to look like once they graduate.
Then we had a family book fair where we had some grant money last year that we were able to purchase quite a few titles that were Native American stories or books written by Native authors. And so we invited our Native families to come over to where we have our PAC meetings, and they were able to take 2 to 3 books home. Each person who showed up, family, even if they weren't enrolled in HSD, the parents, all of them got to take books home. And they were very, very excited with some of the titles and the different books that were there. The parents of the parent committee, there are some left over, and we've talked about distributing those amongst the schools to beef up the libraries that are in the school system. I am working with our district librarian on how to make sure that happens, and getting some stickers put in them to show that they came from our program. And Makey STEM classes are coming up. I am working really in conjunction with Beaverton Beaverton School District. Jenny happens to be their Title VI coordinator, and so having her be a parent with us, as well as having her be in the same role that I'm in, she has been a huge help for HSD, with my position being point 2. And we really feel strongly about the community connection of making sure that our families and the BSD families and the Forest Grove families that we're just kind of building that community to let everybody know that there are places to have culture nights and different things. So one of the things that's happening this Thursday is dance class and skirt and shirt making that Jenny has invited our families to, and so hopefully some of them will be able to go. Any other thing to add to that?
No,
Yeah.
the culture, so Beaverton, it's a mobile caring, so everybody's welcome overnight, where we partner with Pacific University students to come in and do dance classes with our students. So I invite all of Portland Public Schools, Beaverton, Hillsboro, and Forest Grove students who identify as Native American to come in and enjoy this cultural piece. They will learn regalia making, dancing, drumming, all of that goes into the powwow, so that when we do have the powwow, that they are ready and they're understanding of what it is going to be like. And it's also about building relationship and building community, and I love seeing it. I've had 5 now, and I've had a huge turnout from Hillsboro School District and Beaverton coming together.
And we also learned that it's, why have each district do the same exact thing when we can have that community, because it puts strain on the instructors as well as on the instructors, and people stay in isolation, and we don't need that anymore. I haven't heard anything about youth movements yet, so I'm not sure if U of O is doing that again, but if I do, we're going to invite our middle school students, and then beading classes and graduation gifts, those need to be organized with our families to come and help make those for our students. And the last thing is, I guess I didn't put that. This is just a picture, so I'll leave that up there while I talk about this year's powwow. So the last couple of years, we've had a powwow that has been supported by Washington County, Northwest Regional ESD, and the city of Hillsboro, I think, over at Wingspan. And this year, we have been invited to participate with Pacific University at their powwow on May 3rd, thanks to Jenny's connections and collaboration with different people. And this way we can have that collaboration with the college, because the powwow is being organized by their Native students group, and just kind of having that relationship with the H-12 system and to the college system helps our students realize and see where locally other Native groups are that are not just within our little communities. So May 3rd, we will be honoring our graduates on at 1 o'clock at the 1 o'clock grand entry. There are going to be 2 grand entries and Aztec dancers in between. And those are amazing, amazing dancers to watch. If you have never seen Aztec dancers, you'll want to stay there in between the 2 grand entries, but all are welcome and invited to that powwow. So May 3rd, 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock grand entry times. And there will be food vendors and vendors, almost forgot the words. And yeah, and then here's a little bit from the different things that we've done over this last year. Anything else we want to add? Normally I have them speak, but I didn't give them the slideshow ahead of time. So that was my fault. I've heard everything. So, this is us.
Any questions or comments for Native Pack from our work colleagues online?
Thank you so much. It's good to see you all. One of the questions I have when you started talking about the challenge for students to be identified by the different tribes, and I was wondering, because we face that as well for children who are in foster care in my day job, and it is extremely difficult to get them the recognition that they need from the tribes as well. And I'm wondering, is there something that we can do to help, or is there something that you're doing to speak with the various regional grand tribe to try to advocate for that, because it just seems like everybody's running up against a very well-built wall. Totally understandable, but it is difficult when you know you have a child who identifies as a part of a tribe, whether it's Native American or whether it's Alaska Native, and then not to be recognized by that tribe. And I was just wondering how you guys are handling that, or if you're able to advocate on that behalf.
I'm going to advocate her just because I work in the same role as she does, but for a different school district, and I kind of run into the same thing. But I work for ICWA, and I understand what it is like for children that are in foster care and working with tribes. One, you have to build that relationship with the tribe. I have a really good relationship with all 9 tribes here in Oregon. I also have a really good relationship with tribes outside of the state of Oregon. And just reaching out, you literally have to have someone in this role that is able to reach out to those tribes and advocate. But then we also have to look at families that had grandparents or great-grandparents that were in that, boarding schools who got adopted out, and the name change and everything. And so it's just helping those families do that research and find. I mean, I had a family that they've been trying to be part of the Beaverton Title VI program for years, and it took me just reaching out to the Navajo Nation and doing a lot of digging and researching and connecting, and I actually connected them with their family, and so now I have their students with me. But it literally almost took me a whole year just doing all that, and I think that's where it comes to with Hillsboro, is we have to have someone to be able to do that job of reaching out and building relationship with the tribes, because sometimes there's that trust issue where tribes aren't gonna talk, like they won't give you that information. I think knowing that you have someone that is native, that's in that position and able to reach out and build that relationship helps out a lot. And that goes for child welfare too. Like if you have someone that identifies as Native and building that relationship, it really does help.
And in addition to that, sometimes it's difficult because of the generations, right? So to be in the Title VI program has to go 3 generations back with a tribal member. And that can be very challenging for families, not just the ones who've been adopted out or foster systems. It could have been a lot of different things that remove them from their tribal connections and their tribal family. So.
Thank you for saying that. Our former director of ICWA, she was also a member of the same last time, and was very proud of that. And it was just amazing to be able to. This is the first time in my adult life that I have been this close to Native Americans and their culture and have learned so much. And so it is truly a privilege to be in your presence today.
Another thing that Barb and Brooke and I are doing is we're making connections. We just met last week with some of the members of the Celeste tribe, and we'll be meeting with Grand Ron next week. And thanks to Jenny, she helped us get connected to the right connections in order to make those phone calls. It is really a community, and I echo exactly what you're saying. It's about the relationships that you have and who can connect you to who. Because with our funding currently, we are not only a privilege, but we're required to meet with our 2 largest federally recognized tribes due to funding. And so it was a pleasure to meet with the Celeste, and it'll be a pleasure to meet with Grand Ron next week. And hopefully in time, Barbara and I can build the connections that Jenny already has, because she's been in this position for quite some time.
I just also want to thank you for coming and speaking, and I think that just goes to show that there's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt, and for obvious reasons, there's mistrust in government and school and providing information, and so I think it just shows like that cultural brokering that you're able to do by, making these connections and to benefit kids. So I appreciate that you're in that role in Beaverton and also helping here. I have a question about, you were mentioning inviting like other districts and how sometimes like the amount of students might be smaller, in certain districts, and they might not have the same resources that we might have. And I'm thinking about like Banks and Gaston and Forest Grove and Tigard, and like just in our Washington County area, like is there an effort to kind of come together more?
Absolutely. I do reach out to all of those districts, parents that I know that live in that area. I get a lot from Sherwood and Tigard area, so I always invite them because who am I to say if they're Native or not, right? So I do invite them, and I love seeing, I do get a lot of numbers coming to visit and participate in this with us. Like I said, I reach out, like if I know I have family, like if I know somebody that lives in that area, I let them know. I share my newsletter, so if you guys ever want my newsletter, I share it with folks. I send it to Barb. I send it out to everyone that I reach out. I do go to a lot of events that go on within Portland metro area, and so it's a great opportunity for families to also look at that and connect with that too.
And just to touch base, I know that we're close on time, that not every school district has a Title VI program. There are certain requirements that have to happen. So Jenny reaching out to all those, Forest Grove doesn't have a Title VI program. And so, all the smaller districts, they don't have them for many reasons. And so that's one of the things that the ESD was trying to do as well, was get all of the Washington County schools together and bring them together. And Jenny having the connections she has and opening up things to Facebook and whatnot really kind of brings those families in. It's just sometimes they don't want to come all the way in to live, but they're there and invited. So
I was wondering about Northwest ESD and our services that they provide, and if this is something that they're expanding or looking into, because it is like even thinking about families before they enter the K through 12 system, like how are they being connected before that? So
I'm gonna go. Sorry, Jenny.
Well, this is a very, and I've been working on this one really easily with seniors and trying to build that connection so that there is a place to go for all of our families.
And I think what's happening though too is like a lot of us are going to be aging out of the school district as well. So for me, my goal was always to help mentor the next generation that's coming up, but we have to have a program to sustain that. And at this point, like our numbers are like, that's the first time I've seen those numbers, and it's like, oh, we're losing students. And I know we've had students move out of the district. I know they've switched to online schooling, and that's the other fact. And so it's like, how do we sustain this program so that, Maria, who still has a preschooler, will have something, because those are the ages, right? The formative ages where these kids are building their identity, so to have a community. And that's something that we just don't see as much. I'm grateful that we have these like anchors that we can anchor to. Northwest ESD have their grant that we were able to, like I said, pull together and come up with programming where we could collaborate with all these small tribes. We had Rainier, we had Gapoos, yeah, we had some of these that we had never even met and contacted with, and yet those relationships, right, like we was building a relationship. Now that funding is gone, so now we are like you guys is valuable. I know Katie down at the Select Tribe, she donated a bunch of books to the book fair as well. And there are PLC groups. I meet monthly with a PLC of Native American educators where they donated funds so that we could have blankets to provide for these students to have at the graduation powwow as well, or at the specific powwow, as well as materials to make necklaces. So there's a larger community that is out here like supporting, but we need people in places that we can connect to say, hey, there's this, program out at Hillsboro, have an amazing parent group, like really investing in our leadership and our parents that they feel supported to be able to carry out these objectives.
And historically, I was going to add that it wasn't that long ago that the ESD had the title. It was Title VII at the time.
Oh, 6. Oh, Title 7, yes, sorry. I apologize.
ESD actually lost the grant at a certain time, and it was Barb's mom, Deborah, who was the convener of parents in our community. After the ESD gave up that grant, we started ours. And so I just wanted to encourage and celebrate the fact that you all are taking like a regional approach to this, and all the Scappoose and those in Northwest Oregon, we used to have that hub of the ESD to run the Title VII program, and now I can almost see the energy getting back toward a more collective approach for the grant. I know there are students all the way up to Yakani and Astoria, and that whole corner of Oregon could be drawn into what we're building here in this area. So, and Jenny, thank you for being the leader of breaking down the barriers between Beaverton and Hillsboro, and making sure that we share resources across our boundary. So, thank you.
I couldn't do this job without Jenny.
I always say, so my daughter comes to me and she's like, Mom, there's nothing going on for our Native students in Hillsboro. And it broke my heart. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to build community. And so that's when I stepped in and was like, Barb, can we work together? Because this job is a full-time job. And I don't think our district, Hillsboro district, understands that it is a full-time job. If you see the work that I do, I don't know who does it for Hillsboro, because I do sit in IEP meetings to support our Native families. That is part of ODE's request. I do host all these events. I have to make the events. My families meet every month. So we have a meeting and a culture night every month. I do all the recruiting. So I don't have support. I write the grant myself. I do everything on my own. And so I don't think anybody understands the work that goes into this, and to know that Barb has to teach full-time, and then she only has 2-point-something hours to be able to attend to her Native families. It's heartbreaking because our children are being left out of a lot.
Yeah, it's not enough.
So, just a word of advice.
So we are thankful for Barb. And
Yes.
lights on in our little section of the district here.
And I'm here to help support you guys all, too, with our families, and so, yeah.
I really appreciate all of you being to meet all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Those of us who volunteer as board members, we hear from a lot of different voices, a lot of different perspectives, but we always, I and a lot of other board members are always thinking, well, who are we not hearing from? What voices are not in the room? And so, share with us stuff in ours. I remember that's one voice I hadn't heard yet, so I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks. I want to say thank you all for your dedication to building community, as well as helping and building up students through your events and programs. I would like to ask, in what ways did your committee or group receive student input? Through what channels do you tend to find that information trickling in?
It's limited. It is limited. I have sent, over the last couple of years, different informational questionnaires out to all of our students and our families through Google Meets. I asked parents about different programs or different activities or how things are going or if they'd be interested. I have asked what type of events do you want to have at the culture nights or the meeting nights where we can get together. And done in a variety of ways that I have the capacity to do, and what I get back is very, very limited. I also go through the schools sometimes too, through the like when it's secondary information or secondary activities. I'll go through like either the grad coaches or the activities. Are they called activity directors? Yeah.
I couldn't remember their title, but I've gone to them too as well. So.
And Cal, just to add to that, one thing about what the Equity Action, Access and Advisory Committee work in the department does is do that targeted reach out. And so there are Barb's not alone in this, and there are others that support her in our district with providing family outreach liaisons if there's a targeted or a focus group that we want to drive attention to, which could be the Native American, Alaskan Native identifying students. And so there are other access points that maybe aren't available in other districts that we have in ours through the work of the EAE team. So just want to add that too. And I know we're real focused on our Native American, Alaskan Native PAC today, and that's rightly so. We should be focused on that. I also want to call attention to the fact that in our framework and makeup of our district, we have other means that other districts may not have to get information out. But it is about the relationships, and I think some of the best information we can get is when we sit with them at a drumming class and we talk to students and we find out exactly what it is that they need. And so just wanted to add that to them. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you, appreciate you all.
Here tonight and sharing your commitment to our community and your community as well, which is all of HSC and all of Oregon, and everything you do to create a positive experience for our young children. So thank you for being here tonight. The item is Superintendent Evaluations Orientation with Christine Miles from A, and Christine will be joining us online.
I'm here. Hi, everybody. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if we are ready. Let's see. Okay. This should not take too long. We are already into this process. Nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. So we're just going to go through the process, where we are in the process, what comes next, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of this. So the superintendent evaluation process. We are going to go over the mid-year check-in, the self-evaluation process, the summative evaluation process, and then goal creation. Those are the main big components of the evaluation process. So the mid-year check-in that you do with your superintendent, this has already been done. You've already done this. The superintendent brings an update on his goals, including evidence of progress on those goals. The board reviews that, asks questions, gives direction. That is a big part of the process, which you've already completed. So then for the timeline that we've got at the end of March, your superintendent will complete the report on his goals and provide evidence for that as part of the self-evaluation. The board will consider this for the next step. So I think we've got by around March, the very end of March, that self-evaluation will be completed and given to the board. So in between the receipt of the self-evaluation in late April, so you'll have mostly the whole month of April, you will complete your evaluation booklets, and you have those. That's the OSBA evaluation booklet. If there's time, since you've got a number of weeks, what I like to do is have you send me your responses prior to our executive session, and what I like to do is compile those into themes, because what we do as part of the process is really talk through, what the themes are. But I like to potentially do that in advance. If not, everybody can just come with their thoughts. Either way, we meet an executive session and that is discussed. So that is going to be in late April, meet an executive session to discuss and draft a one-voice evaluation summary report. So what you'll be doing with that booklet is you'll be rating and drafting some comments on each of those standards and the goals. What we want to do as part of those comments is really keep them concise and and targeted toward, during discussion, it's great to give examples, but we want our written comments to be concise. And then, of course, we come together as a full board and really really compile those into a short narrative for each standard. So I then finalize that draft, what that looks like. I send to the board for independent review of that because you get to finalize it. It's your document, not mine, but I do what I can to help you scribe that, get that to a point where you want to adopt it. In mid-May, I see, I misspelled board here. The board meets to discuss the narrative with the superintendent and make any final changes. Again, that is in executive session. As long as you're talking about evaluation, you can meet in executive session. And then in late May, you will publicly adopt the evaluation. You will read your summary of the evaluation publicly and adopt that publicly. Any questions on this summative evaluation steps? This is sort of the big main part of it. Okay. Seeing none on that. So then the cycle starts again. What you want to do is really, evaluation is a full year thing. It doesn't mean you are evaluating all year long, but what you want to do is really have clear expectations set at the very beginning of the cycle so that everybody knows what's happening all year long and nothing is a surprise. Right after the end of the summative evaluation, at a public meeting, you want to adopt the tool, the process, and the timeline for the next evaluation cycle. If you want to turn around and use the same tool and adopt the same kind of timeline, the same process, you do that in public. That's not executive session stuff. Just like you did this year, you bring all of that forward, create that great evaluation timeline that you've got right now, and take your tool, adopt all of that in public, and so that you've got at the beginning of a cycle something that you and your superintendent can expect for the year. If you've got anything additional you want to add to the process, you do that then, not during the process, again, so everybody knows what to expect. At around the same time, based on the evaluation, based on what the district is doing, what your strategic priorities and plans are, you're going to let your superintendent go and draft a couple of goals himself first. So we always want the superintendent to be able to take first shot at drafting his own goals. So he's going to go and with direction from the board, draft a couple of goals for next year, bring those to the board in a public session, and then you all talk about those. And then the board can adopt those. You want to do that again at the beginning of the cycle so that he's got the full cycle to work on those and everybody knows what's going to be evaluated at the end of the year. So that starts the whole process again and sets everybody up for the next year. Any questions on that piece? That's the process. So any questions? That's what we are doing next. We are meeting again, I believe on April 22nd. I think that's my next meeting with you. And I'm happy to take any questions.
That's a question.
Yes, Erica.
I just had a question of if maybe we can have this like in a timeline of the activities. And I was thinking even for I won't be here, but the retreat that you do where we have planned out already through the year to know what's happening, because it is a year-long process, but to know this is when the superintendent creates the goals, this is when we do this. It would be great to have a schedule of this. Because right now I was like trying to keep it in my head, but it would be easier to see it in a timeline of like where we're at.
And there is a great timeline that's already been put together, and so if that could certainly be provided to you, and then I think that is a great idea for you all to work that into to your agendas and your plans for the rest of the year. Yeah.
Kristen, it's Nancy. Good to see you again.
You too.
there was a time on the first term at the very, very beginning, and we had to do this big review, and it was a little overwhelming. And then the next time we did it, it was no big deal. And then I realized that we keep doing it over and over and over again, and we're in this cycle, and we do it. Is it near annual? Yes. Is there such thing as evaluation fatigue? And are we doing it too much? And is annual, especially because the process doesn't end, it's almost like an evolving, a revolving 360-degree evaluation, and it never ends. And so I'm just wondering, just a thought, just asking if anybody's ever thought about that. Like, for example, it's Travis's first year, right? And we ought to be able to give him a really good evaluation for the first year, but then we're going to turn around and do it again. And then we're going to do it again after that. And I'm just wondering, could we look at, or has anyone considered maybe every other year or every third year or something like that that has a reasonable period where a person can actually do the job? There's nothing worse than trying to do the job and consistently being evaluated on the job you're trying to do because you never got a chance to do the job because you're being evaluated on the job.
That's a fair point. Fair point. Fair point. Did anybody want to comment before I answer that? Okay.
I could comment.
Yes.
Nancy,
please.
I think at the heart of what you're saying is like, let's not overburden people with process, but I actually really value the process of being evaluated. I'm a big believer in continuous improvement process, and from the board, superintendent, our cabinet, all of our principals, we have like tiers of how we execute our strategic plan and meet our goals, and I should be evaluated in relationship to that, and it helps me do my job better. So I've asked Kristen and Rose to help us solidify the process and just make it as easy on you as possible, but also make sure that I'm held accountable for my job performance.
I will add, Kristen, before you answer, to kind of to Nancy's point, that maybe like some of the goals, it's super hard to get done in 1 year. They're like big, some goals might be more, takes, time to change certain things, might take 2 to 3 years for something to be complete. But is there such thing where before we used to do like a really in-depth evaluation, and then we would do like a lighter version, so maybe to that every other year, a deep dive one, and just thinking there's other ways.
You certainly...
I'll just remind everybody.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just remind everybody in our policy that we are to evaluate the superintendent once each year.
Yeah, I think it's required. Okay.
It is at least 6 ORSs that are cited, so I'm sure it's in state law. So.
Kristen, maybe you could speak to the research that went into the OSBA COSA recommended process that you represent when you teach it to us.
Sure, happy to. So yes, a couple of things about that. And I was just, I think Rose beat me to it. I think that was you, Rose. That I was just looking up your policies to see where it was. But there is generally a policy that says that the superintendent will be evaluated annually. It could also be, and I don't know, it could also be in Travis's contract. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
As the person who did the contract last time, I think it is. Like, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it is.
So there's that too. We do find that, it is, we did work with COSA to develop this tool and find that year over year, look at those standards, especially when they remain consistent. The goals don't always remain consistent, but the standards do. And so that year over year look at community engagement and management and visionary leadership, all of those things, gets to the board and the superintendent get to reflect on what is the work in each of those areas and what is progress. That all goes into what the next contract looks like as well. So that's all book of evidence stuff. And that does, as Travis said, like help promote professional growth, really gives good feedback, so that you don't feel like you're just continuously doing this. I like what you have done this year. We often recommend quarterly evaluative check-ins, but I think you're just doing the one. You've done your mid-year check-in, and so that can kind of decrease that workload by doing one if you feel like that is sufficient. You can have an evaluative conversation anytime you want, so you're not limiting yourselves at any time. But I think also once you get a process established and set up, it will kind of run on its own steam and it won't necessarily feel like too much all the time. And evaluation is one of those most important things that a board does is, hire and evaluate a superintendent, really critical stuff. And it really can be a collaborative partnership that promotes professional growth and gives the board a really good look sort of behind the curtain at what the superintendent does and is leading. And there are certain ways to look at, what do we want to focus on this year? We still do recommend looking at all the standards, but particularly when your superintendent has goals, like those may be of, really critical importance. Of course, you're going to, look at the standards, like their leadership, their ethics and behavior, like their management. But like when you're really focused on strategic outcomes and the superintendent has goals, those may really take priority for the board as well. Does that help?
I do think last year, I would say, I felt like last year was a little light because it was Travis's first year. So last year may have been, to me, a little bit lighter. Plus, we were not using the OSBA guidance and the COSA tool directly. We were using some of the information from COSA, but the outside service person was already retired and maybe not fully engaged. So I do think last year was a little lightish. So I expect this year to be a little more cumbersome. Although maybe the process is easier, but from my past experience, last year required maybe a little less time than some of the other years that we had previously. Separately, I will also say I've already had, we occasionally, the board has included 360 feedback, which involves community partners, union partners, lots of different things. And I've already had, community members ask me, are we doing a 360 this year? And we're not. It's Travis's second year, so I don't feel like we're ready for that. But, maybe the third year, if not, maybe the fourth year. So I think, at least have that on our radar too, in terms of the kind of style and what we're doing. I may not be here next year either, hopefully I am. But, I would be, I think it's time to at least start to consider a 360 version at some point. Not this year.
I appreciate the feedback, everybody. I was just thinking that it just feels like it never ends. And sometimes I think more so this year than in your first year. And you're right, it was a short one because it was your pseudo first year because of when you actually took over, and it did feel differently. But I think, Kristen, are you also telling us that yes, we're mandated to do that, but we do have a little bit of leeway on what we do annually and what we focus on annually, and maybe that is where we can make some differences if we choose to?
Certainly. There's nothing, unless it's in the contract, there's no like structure that's required necessarily, right? So we do recommend consistency over year over year. And so this is why we haven't really done we haven't made any changes to the superintendent evaluation workbook since we wrote it with COSA in 2020. And so that every year since 2020, the superintendents and boards have gotten to use a consistent instrument so that, it's not changing every year. So we do recommend consistency in what you're looking at, except goals. Those will change and those will evolve over time. And so you certainly could put more emphasis on certain elements of the evaluation if you wanted to.
Kristen, pardon me, this is Patrick. I think I was away when you were here last, so it's nice to have you with us. Thanks for being here. I wanted to ask you a little bit, since I think I was gone last time, if you don't mind if I ask a little bit of a bigger process question. It's really along the lines of what Mark just shared briefly, and maybe a little bit the opposite of what Nancy was sharing, honestly. But when we, what exactly is a 360 is kind of differs depending on the organization. But so I don't use that term here particularly. But in general, when we were hiring a new superintendent a few years ago, before we interviewed the final candidates, we put out a survey to all of our people who work in the district, asking them a lot of questions about what they would be looking for in a leader and how they feel things are going and their hopes and dreams and concerns about the district operations. And I found that one of the most important and informative pieces of evidence I've gotten in my time on the board, because it was a direct collected feedback from those who are working in frontline positions as teachers and classified staff. So I would like at some point to do that again, likely as part of the superintendent evaluation process, asking all of our employees how they feel things are going, what they think are areas for improvement or concern. So I guess I'm asking you, with your little bit more experience in working with different districts, is that something other districts have done ever, or is from time to time?
Yeah, I can talk about this a little bit because we do provide a service on that, and I can tell you what we do, and I can tell you what we don't do anymore. So we used to work with boards to develop 360 surveys, where we would put surveys out to staff and community and have boards, create the questions and put those out. What we found is that process of developing questions and just kind of putting it out there for anybody to answer was really unintentionally soliciting complaints and information that was not super useful to either the board or the superintendent in the end. And so after years of doing this, what we decided to do is really tailor what we offered and what we did to try and get the feedback that we were asking for be really, really useful. So we created what we call a targeted feedback survey, where we have questions that we have written that are aligned to every standard. So the questions are specifically aligned to each standard, and they are different for staff and different for community. So they are targeted to the experience that somebody would have as a staff member versus what somebody would have as a family or community member. And there are not necessarily questions for every, there are more questions for staff. There are questions for staff on 7 of the 8 standards, and not as many for community, because community doesn't necessarily have deep knowledge in every one of those instructional areas. But what we have done is written those questions. They are standardized, and we don't let boards change them. So we will give examples of those, but we don't do any wordsmithing of those. We have 2 open-ended questions at the end, which are that folks can say what they want. It's, what in your experience, what is a superintendent doing really well? In your experience, what could use improvement? What we do as far as the audience is we work with the superintendent and the board to figure out who, this is why we call it targeted, who would be the best audiences to give this to that have direct experience with the superintendent's work. So we ask that the audience be kind of small but we don't want a lot of I don't know answers. So, so with staff, it usually includes the superintendent's direct reports, cabinet, other folks who know the superintendent's work, so who may be on committees or other folks that have good interaction, close interaction with the superintendent and would be able to reflect on his work. With community, then we ask to find a group of folks that, again, are on committees or advisory groups or something where they've got, interaction with superintendent's work. And that can be families, that can be community organizations, that can be, local government officials, whoever, whatever that looks like, but who can reflect well, so that again, we're not getting a bunch of I don't knows. And when that process is thoughtful, we get some really good feedback. We will also leave space for a couple of questions that the board can create to reflect on goals, but we craft those with you really carefully, so that they still look like, they're aligned to the standards. We've been doing this for several years. A lot of boards do this. Some of them don't, but a lot of boards do this. And we found that process has been really valuable. It's, of course, not the evaluation. It is one tool and one piece of data in the evaluation. But we found that it's a lot better than just, putting out a survey for anyone to answer. And that's what we do.
I appreciate that, you sharing that with me. That's good information to have. I think I'll have to think about what you've shared, and that's a really good information. I think I'm just one of 7 board members, and we're all very collegial here. I think if it was up to me entirely, I would benefit greatly from an annual survey of all non-managerial, non-supervisory staff, just to understand how they're feeling about things. But that might be, I'm sure we can continue discussing it in the years ahead and come to some kind of a situation that makes sense and works for everyone. So thank you again.
I understand, and I'm here now, but I think I like the idea of every once in a while, not every year, but yeah. With what you've taken to heart, which you said earlier about making sure the process is very clear at the outset, maybe if there's like a one-pager or a little summary you could deliver to us at the last board meeting in June when we're about to go away, and then we can visit at our board retreat in August what we want to do, and if we want to incorporate that, like let us know how much more expensive it is to do that, what kind of services are provided, sort of like a little print breakdown of what you just covered. Get that. We'll be done with this year's evaluation. Maybe get us a little bit of information at the end of this year, and then as we start the next academic year and start preparing, we can look at whether or not that's something we want to do for next year. And I will say, to your point about just soliciting complaints, I think there's a lot of truth in that. And we did that as a board one year where we solicited 360 feedback, and it was a lot of just soliciting complaints. But I will say I read every single word of it, and I think I'm a better board member because I did. So I don't know that soliciting complaints is all that bad.
And I'm happy to get you a write-up on what the targeted feedback 60 is, or targeted feedback survey is, what the cost is, and what it entails. Happy to do that. Any other questions for me? Okay. I'm happy to let you move on. Thank you for having me. I will be seeing you soon.
Kristen.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. The last item for the work session is a PAC accountability update on bias incident reports with Kristen.
I love what Travis said, in the spirit of continuous improvement. So in my spirit of continuous improvement, we took your feedback from the last time the Black Village Family Advisory Committee was here. They came to us with questions about how we report bias incidents, and we had a good discussion on what we can do moving forward. So a team of us have been working together, and I'd like to thank Jordan and Beth for being a part of it, and Audra for being a part of the conversation. they're going to join me at certain parts during this. And so just want to reframe it. We're listening to our families and our community, centering on student belonging. Our parents have asked, our families and caregivers have asked for more accessible ways to report potential bias incidents. And as HSC is committed to creating safe and inclusive environments, the bias reporting systems allow our administrators the opportunity to make change for our students, families, and staff as we create those safe and welcoming learning environments. So as a team, we got together made up of district leaders, those that I included, and to address this need that was brought up and really focused on 3 guiding principles, which was access, transparency, and ease of use. We centered it on community voice as a driver for this solution. I'm going to toss it over to Jordan because he was instrumental in trying to figure out how we will do this on the technology side, and then Beth will come in on how we are communicating this out towards families, and then I'll come back after.
Took a look at a few of the things around the current forms, and one of those was they collect lots of information in lots of different areas, not necessarily just bias incidents. And so there's sort of tip lines or other type of services. And so there's sort of 2 of those out there now that some are directed to. And so we wanted something that was definitely more specific based on the feedback around this, and then also those others are really built around potentially having most of those tips come in as anonymous, where in this case we didn't see that that was as helpful because we need to be able to, if we're going to turn in these reports into action and like actually trying to solve those issues, we need more information and exactly what happened and who's involved and so forth, so we can follow up on those incidents. So we decided to go ahead and build this out inside of our Qualtrics platform to do that survey tool that makes accessible from anywhere. And so there'll be multiple points of access for that through the district website and the school website. So we'll list that once that is up and running. It's not available yet. We plan on having it all launched by April 1st in the new form. And so that'll be available in quick links on the district website and on the school websites, which is sort of listed toward the bottom with some other jump points at each site. But then also in the search tool, when you click on that, and that's sort of what that's shown there, it'll list be listed right there in those links on the search. And then we also tried to, with that link, it'll be available that teachers or anyone else can put those inside of Google Classrooms or other things. If there is something that happened, very easy for others to put that out there in those type of systems. This will also allow us to get better detailed reporting and follow up on those items by putting in the system and have more options down the road for other workflows. So the other systems will still exist, the Safe Oregon tip line and the other tip line that's on our site, the HSC one, will still exist, but this will be added to those as another option for specifically for bias. So again, those will be on the district website, the school website, and then we can post them in the Google Classroom. And then also develop QR codes and other ways of getting that out there for others to use it. John, can you actually click on the quick link box?
The one that has a link, yeah. Should be a link down to it.
We do have it available. I think if you have the PDF in your in the board packet, there is that. That should be hyperlinked. So there we go.
Because it's in
reshare. We have a sort of rough draft. We're working through that, what that looks like, the survey and sort of the pieces of that. So with that, it does ask for the individual's name, phone number, email, so we can contact them, which school or building it was located, that the incident happened, where on campus, who was involved, what your role was, who was harmed by what you had seen, and then was there some HSD staff member that can be contacted about this also. Date, time, all of those things, were there witnesses, and has this happened before? And if they answer yes to some of those, it opens more fields for them to fill those out. And then just a basic description of what happened, and then sort of anything else to share. So it does that. When they click submit, they'll get an email back letting them know that there had been a submission, because that was one of the pieces of feedback, not knowing, like, did anybody get this, what's going on? So they will get something back on that, and then that's sent directly based on the building they select to the administrator, the principal of that building, and so that they can follow up and get back to them with both what they've learned about the incident and any follow-ups that are being done.
If you can go back to the original. So one thing I'm going to have Beth talk about real quickly is the updating of our search engine optimization on the next slide, and a few things that the communications department has done to create better optimization when somebody is trying to find where to find the location of an incident report.
I just wanted to say that we added some tags onto our reporting safety concerns page to help that pop up higher in the search results when people type certain words in, like bias. So that has been enhanced. And I mean, yeah, we're ready to help push out communications however the committee and Francesca see best. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's really a hot news thing or if it's a more targeted thing, but we're ready to do whatever.
And this, what I'm hoping as I take this back to the Black Village, who were the first original ones who had asked for this, is that they will see our ongoing commitment to the feedback from our families and our students and how we are working as a district to try to provide better ways for them to access. It was a good time for us to review. Did we have all the right words that were in the search engine, or were we making things a little bit more complicated for them? So Jordan already talked about this a little bit too, is that when a report is made, an email will be triggered to the reporter that it has been received. They will have 2 to 3 days to reply. We need to give that time for our building administrators. Oftentimes when I was in the school, and some of us that were building administrators, the original ones that were coming to us were so vague and anonymous that it was like somebody said this, but there was no who, what, where, when, any of that information. This is going to give that to us, but it also gives our administrators a couple of days to figure out and do their investigating. The school designee will receive an email of the report, and at that time they will do 2 things. One, they will determine if an official bias incident report needs to be filled. If that is the case, then they will complete one at that time. If it is not an official bias incident report, then that information will be given to a staff designee. Maybe it is a bullying incident. Maybe it is something other than a bias incident report. And in those cases, they will designate it to a designee, but they still have to reply to the family or the victim or the complainant within 2 to 3 days so that they know that there is a follow-up. We shared this today with our building administrators at our PK-12, and so they are committed to having that restorative responses and education towards intervention. So what happens next? I want to thank you all for that opportunity to be a continuous learner, and for all of us to work together, another opportunity for us to collaborate as a team. Any other ongoing feedback to improve our system is always welcome, and that families and students will be notified via Monday Notes, which is our internal administrators. They found out about it PK-12 today. which is our administrator meeting. And then we have a district climate, culture, and voice meeting coming up, and those are people who go to, who come as leaders of the climate and culture of their building. We will share with them at that time too, so that they are aware of it. And just working really closely with Audrey's team and school support so that we make sure that all the people who need to know. And we are scheduled for it to be live in April when we get back from spring break. So I really want to thank Jordan and Beth and Audrey for all their help with really pulling this together, because it wasn't something that just was landing with me. It was something that we all needed to support each other in order to collaboratively come together and find a new avenue for parents to, and families and students. Staff will still follow the normal way of reporting a referral, which is writing a referral. This isn't meant for staff. This is meant for our community members and for our students who may not have that safe person in their building or feel comfortable enough to report something, or a family who doesn't know where to go. It will be translatable through Qualtrics, at least in Spanish for now, so that our families whose first language isn't English have access to that too. Are there any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Speaking into this. So one question was trying to create like a baseline and see like what if it's happening. With the referrals, how will we know if they're doing it, like let's say they did tell us, are they marking it as a bias into can we go back this family's reporting or a referral there?
Yeah, Audrey worked, and a couple of us worked on it this year. There is actually on the referral now, which is new this year, bias incident.
Okay. And then did we ask the Black Family Village to look at the form and give us feedback if like this meets the needs that they were asking, or if there's information maybe that is missing?
The questions that we worked on were gathered on the feedback that I have gotten from them over the year, but that's not a bad idea for me. We have a leadership meeting on Thursday, so I could pose that to them if there's any final, before Jordan pushes go on it. I can bring it up with them on Thursday.
I just want to, like, especially because it was one of their ideas of something to have accountability, that they also have an opportunity to have direct input on, like, the final.
I also think Fran's team, with the Black Village had shared, is it's similar to Beaverton's model, which is what they had indicated as a model that they wished we had in some capacity. So I think we've mimicked a lot of this from that too, but I think that's a totally good point too. We did not start from scratch on this form. We had kind of a model to snag from the east.
I had a few questions regarding this form. The first, let's see. This form, from what I understand, students, people will be notified of the form through it was a Monday newsletter, you said, and I believe also it will be posted in Google Classroom. How do I put this? How will you simply ask staff members to include it in their Google Classroom? Okay.
I get what you're saying. So what you're saying is what will the communication be so that students know that it is in their Google Classroom, or why are these QR codes up around my building? What do they mean? Working with Audria and her team of executive directors, really it is up to the building principal to determine what and how they're going to go about disseminating this information. However, what Audria, David, Lindsay, and Verita, who are executive directors, what we can do is have that conversation of how we are going to ensure some consistency throughout our district. That has not occurred yet, but it will occur this week based on your feedback in my continuous cycle of improvement. We can ask that question of how will, what's going to be our consistency of how we're going to get it out? Because right now, as you noted on one of those, I did list it as optional of whether or not it'll be up in a Google Classroom, because not all teachers, most do, not all do Google Classroom. So we wanted to think of alternative ways, like could it be in a hallway? Could the QR code be in front of the counselor's center or the counseling office? And those were all things that we had designed, but as far as the consistency on what will be in each of our schools, that hasn't been determined yet, but we can definitely talk about it this Friday.
Priority Cal was the website first to make sure it was easily accessible on our HSC website for locations in the quick links, but schools are next to have that conversation.
On the form, there was a section for witnesses asking, were there witnesses to this event? I noticed there was yes and no, and a third option. When someone clicks on that button and says yes, there were witnesses, are there additional fields that open up to describe who, the witness or give contact info for the witness?
Yes.
Wonderful. And for the there was a question regarding, may have written this down wrong, perceived identities, or protected identities, I think it is. I recall, I'm familiar with the term and how there are certain federally protected identities, protected attributes of a person that are protected by the law. I'm not sure if every student I'm not sure if a large number of students who are filling out the form are familiar with what that term means. Could a link be added to explain what those terms might mean in simpler terms?
Common language, that would be great. That's great feedback. Thank you so much, Cal.
Thank you.
And Francesca, that may not even need to be a link. That's a parenthesis example, all of the recognized categories, which we feel like there's a lot, but there actually aren't.
Thank you.
That would help to address that right there. You know exactly what they were talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, first, just want to thank you, Fran and team, for coming so quickly together with a solution, and it's great to see how accessible this link and this form would be. A couple questions. One, I want to second Erica's concern or just question of whether or not we've vetted this with a Black Family Village and even other PACs. Just to make sure that we are actually meeting the need that they have requested. And so just wanted to second that comment. My next question is, in the what happens next slide, it says, there's a commitment to restorative responses and education-focused interventions. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what that means and what exactly staff will be trained on, or what kind of guidance would be given for them to respond accordingly.
Great question. If it is a bias incident, there's a complete guide for them that we've been working on since Every Student Belong came to be. And so it has direct questions of what, and a flow chart of how things happen. So in the case that it's a bias incident, and we've been filing those or reporting those we're going on, I think, year 4 now, maybe 3. So our principals know the procedures of what to do if it is a bias incident, and how restoration and repair of the situation, of how to go about doing that. As far as if it's bullying or harassment, those don't necessarily flow in the same way as a bias incident. And so that we depend on our code of conduct, as well as the training that we've done with either collaborative problem solving practices or our school-wide behavior support plans. And so I feel confident in what our principals do have at this time. It just triggers for them, if it's a bias incident, then I have to follow this flow chart form of how things, because the state is very particular on how we follow it when it's a biased incident. There's letters that need to be sent, contacts that need to be made. The rules are a little different on who you tell what to and who you can explain it to. And it is completely rooted in restorative practices on how you work to restore the relationship, if there is one, and how you work to restore the relationship inside the classroom. It's when it gets into the bullying or harassing that is a little bit different, and then I fall more heavily on a school-wide system of behavior and support and our code of conduct. I don't know if you wanted to add any more to that, Audria.
No, and I think each incident that does occur, there's a very thoughtful process to go forth, especially for the student that has been caused harm and the one that, because we're also a learning environment, and so we want to be thoughtful in how we approach who did the causing of the harm, who was harmed, where are they comfortable in that situation as we work to do the restorative practices, because sometimes these incidents can be really teachable moments, and sometimes they can be really traumatic moments for students. So we have to really, principals or administrators have to have really good conversations with students around that. And I know the form does feel long, but getting that information allows us to make sure we're getting the detailed information that we need to know to investigate and to see what occurred in that situation, and then approach it with the best possible lens. And a lot of the times we'll consult with the execs, or we'll consult with Fran and her team to see if there's anything we should be doing different based on the information we've gathered. Every one of these incidents is individual and different, so there's no, you would love a perfect flow chart for everything, but that just doesn't. This is humans, and we work in a human industry, and that can be really hard sometimes. And so we just take each one with care and do the best we can to support all parties involved, because we also want the person that did the harm to learn as well as support the student.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to quickly ask, we're running low on time, if it takes 2 to 3 days for the form to be processed and for a response to be sent back to the harmed party or the harmed individual, could that be noted at the bottom of the form, letting them know how long it may take for them to receive feedback for it?
Yes, it is noted at the bottom. Thank you.
And they will get
that email.
They will get it in the email that says that it will.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I thank you guys all for on sort of springing into action the way you did. Like that was I really appreciate bringing that back to the end. Specifically, I think mentioned like QR code idea and I really appreciate my efforts to make something happen relatively quickly, but also that's a great point of like not having done with like this. Great job, everyone. I think that clock is not sprung ahead yet. I realize that.
I just say adding the circling back to the Black building, getting like that feedback loop. But if there's a way to also promote it, like to our Native Pack and Latino Pack, to say, hey, there's this new tool, and here's what, and being that more targeted kind of.
Thank you. We will now recess at 7:01 and begin the regular
contribution to the education of our students. The Hillsboro School District appreciates the service of dedicated volunteers to assist professional educators by offering their time, encouragement, and meaningful contact with students. The Hillsboro School District acknowledges that volunteers are called upon to assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a balanced education for our students, and are an important part of a team that strives to ensure that each one of our students succeeds. The Hillsboro School District thanks volunteers for spending innumerable hours serving schools as chaperones, mentors, after-school tutors, club leaders, booster club members, PTA, PTO, and PAC members, guest speakers, classroom helpers, athletic coaches, and in countless other ways. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors do hereby proclaim the week of April 20th to the 26th, 2025 to be National Volunteer Week. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of volunteers to the development and prosperity of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lopez. Next, we will have our School Bus Driver Appreciation Day proclamation read by Director Patrick McGuire.
Hello, everyone. The Hillsboro School District recognizes the invaluable service school bus drivers provide in transporting students to and from school each day. We believe it is important to appreciate and recognize the tremendous contributions they make to education and safety for our students. We recognize that each year bus drivers transport more than 13,000 students between home, school, and events safely. Each year, approximately 130 school bus routes are driven more than 1,700,000 miles by dedicated drivers in the Hillsboro School District. We applaud our school bus drivers, and therefore, the Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2025 to be School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. We invite all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of school bus drivers to the Hillsboro School District community.
Thank you, Director McGuire. Our next agenda item is the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed.
Second. It has been moved by Director Lopez, seconded by Director Thomas to approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? The motion carries. Our next agenda item is audience time.
We have one.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna read our participation statement before we get started. As representatives of the community, members of the Board of Directors believe that listening to public input is essential to making wise decisions. So we thank you for taking the time to be here. We consider this your time to speak and our time to listen. So individual board members will not reply directly to you immediately following your comment. If a board member hears something that requires additional attention, they may request it be added to a future meeting agenda, or the superintendent or his designee may reach out directly to connect with you. We are fortunate in the Hillsboro School District to have a collaborative community that can discuss points of disagreement in a respectful manner. With this in mind, rudeness, ridicule, obscene or profane language, impatience, lack of respect for others, and personal attacks are not acceptable. Comments aimed at state and federally protected classes are prohibited. Audience demonstrations supporting or opposing a speaker or idea are not permitted. We welcome frank discussion of our district operations and programs, but in public sessions, the board does not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member. Public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH, public comment at board meetings. These are our structured channels for the board to review complaints involving staff members described in board policy KL, public complaints. As you start your remarks, please share your name and if speaking for an organization, the name of your organization. We allow up to 3 minutes for each public comment. Please feel free to follow up by email to the board or the superintendent.
All right, Joe Everton.
Good evening, school board. I'm Joe Everton. I am speaking as a Hillsboro parent tonight and a community member. If I can't get through all this, I will send you an email later, but it's something I wanted you to know about. Our workforce needs strong STEM students. I work in this industry and I see the challenge. I commend our teachers for the hard work that they do in trying to prepare our students for this kind of a career. As a member of the CCAC, I've been reviewing the new math curricula and also looking closely at the new math pathways. And I've spoken to a few other parents who also have a STEM career, and they're also looking at it, and some of them are on the CCAC. I'm hearing some comments and concerns, and I wanted to try and summarize those for you tonight and propose an adjustment that might help. First, the thing that I like about it is it gives the new math pathways. It gives new alternatives for math, focusing on getting kids who give up on math, might give up on math, ways to explore it meaningfully. Many students won't need Algebra 2 for beyond their plans, right? I recommended Math 105Z to you as part of the committee for this reason. These are some great alternatives for students who are not planning to go into STEM. The thing that I'm concerned about is, in my view, from my understanding of it, it makes it harder for STEM-bound students. And I'm going to explain how. So kids who have good help at home will still be prepared for college, I believe. But the kids who rely on public schools 100% to prepare them for STEM in college are going to be frustrated, disappointed, and feel kind of rushed. That's my concern. So let me explain why. I'll try and lay this out. The best prep for STEM in college is to take AP Calc and AP Stats. This is kind of generally recognized. Those are the best preparations you can have if you're planning on going to a STEM career. Any student serious about them should be taking this calculus pathway, right? There's 3 of them. The calculus one is the one for the STEM kids. The default course layout for all pathways is Math 7, Math 8, Geometry Data Science, Algebra 10, Algebra 10 in 10th grade. And it's new that we're not taking Algebra 1 until 10th grade. This means that we have 11th grade and 12th grade to study Algebra 2, Pre-Calc, Calc, Stats, Calc 2. It's 2 years. Those are 5. If you wanted to cover all of them, I'm not saying everybody needs to, but I'm just saying there's a lot of material to cover there in high school. And these are all full year courses. So we're decompressing grades 7 through 10 for all students. And I'm proposing that it's going to cause some problems for students who are calc bound, who don't have good support at home, who have to cover everything in those last 2 years. So at Century, we actually have an accelerated Algebra 2 course right now, and it covers enough pre-calc that a lot of students actually try to skip the pre-calc. And this is very similar to what we're going to have to do if we're rushing through this. And what I'm hearing is some of the kids do fine. My kids have done it. It works for some of them, but others are really struggling in calculus, and it really makes it hard for them. So decompressing those 2 years so that they have more time to cover this material would be helpful for them, for many students. Our current answer to this is to pinch Algebra 2 and Pre-Calc together, right? I'm not saying it doesn't work for everybody. So the only way currently planned for students, as I understand it, to accelerate their middle school so they have more time in high school is for them to test out of a class and skip it. But if you think about this, who's going to take Math 7 and all of a sudden know how to pass Math 8? It's going to be the kids with support at home. So if we don't have any way for them to do this, then really the only kids who are going to be able to get ahead and have the extra time in high school are going to be the ones who have support at home, who get pulled out of middle school to go do private school or homeschool or whatever, and then come back later. I think we all agree we want to support these kids who don't have the support at home. It's important, right? And that's why it's important to offer different paces. This is something I've advocated for a long time. I mean, even as early as 2016, I've always been here advocating we need to have different paces for different students. It's the best way to support all of our students. My simplest recommendation is to offer a Math 7-8 class, bring it back. I think we had it a while ago, and teach both Math 7-8 in 1 year, and this will make it so that they can take Algebra 1 a year earlier, and at least 1 more year that they can explore stats or Calc 2 or what have you. And I think this would make it easier for more students to succeed at Calc, and we really need these students to go into STEM. We need as many kids in STEM as we can get. And it's a tough path, but we need to support them. So that was all. I actually got through it. I probably won't email you, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to talk to you later. I am talking to administrators about this. If I've misunderstood something and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is fine, I will let you know. But I just want you to know this conversation is going on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Please email us anyway.
Our next agenda item is to approve the consent agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second. It has been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Lopez to approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Motion carries. Our next agenda item is the 2024-2025 Drug, Alcohol, and Tobacco Prevention Plan with Brooke and Jen. Good evening. I have the honor of introducing Jenny Carey, who is our coordinator of mental and behavioral health.
We, every year, is in our policies to review our drug and alcohol prevention plan. Why we do this kind of around Q3 is also to prepare and report on data throughout the year as well. So we'd like to share not only the work that we've outlined within the plan, but then also to share some of the work and numbers with you as well. So Jenny's going to be doing both of those things this evening. Also, thank you to Jenny and her team, and then also all of the staff within our buildings and schools. That is part of the report and plan as well. But there's so much energy and effort that goes not only to the plan, but then also that intervention work that is so crucial to this. And then also, as Jenny shared tonight, we will take any questions that you have, not only about the plan, but also some of the responses that we provide within our schools.
Good evening. Thanks for having me back. You're going to see a lot of familiar slides. We've been doing this a few years now, so there's some slides I'm going to skip through pretty quickly, and a few major updates or significant updates that I think are really where we'll spend most of our time. We're going to talk about the prevention and intervention plan for students, review some Oregon Student Health Survey data that's relevant to this topic, and most importantly, celebrate those connections and outreaches that we are able to do through our investments in building supports and community partnerships. Our approach has remained the same. We really center our health and safety for our students as we look at this work. It's through collaboration and partnerships that we're able to move this work forward in our buildings and in our community. Here's the plan. Again, to provide context, we're celebrating the continuum of support. And that is to say that it isn't just the responsive work that we're doing around substance use and abuse. It is the prevention work that goes into, a good health curriculum, a good mental health literacy programs, our advisory work, some of the things that are going on universally for students across the district to help center the health and safety. We also are looking at some of the early intervention and identification programs and the ways that we make sure that we're catching students that are not catching, but making sure that we're identifying students that are needing support early on and intervening as quickly as possible with the resources that we have. When we have students that do need more formal supports, we have our school-based health center and referral and connection opportunities through our mental health care coordination team and school-based mental health partnerships that are able to address some of those needs. Again, those staff investments, we have both district level and building level staff that are working to support this work. Some of the more specialty positions like the student support and wellness counselor play a big role in supporting this work when we are working with students who are struggling with substance use. We also have some new work going on and expanding in our internship programming. We have now Portland State has social work interns in our middle schools that are supporting the early identification and intervention with this work as well. The continuum of support continues to be something that we rely on in our buildings to help kind of guide teams in what resources exist depending on the needs. If we have families reaching out for support, what are our options? If we have students that are, abusing substances on campus, what are our options? What are those entry points? And ideally, we're, again, not just identifying students who are using and abusing on campus, though we have processes for that, but we're identifying students who may need intervention, who have risk factors for substance use, getting ahead of that and supporting before there are issues. One of the programs that I want to highlight tonight in this work is our school-based screening, brief intervention, and referral to support program. This is going on in our middle schools. We've expanded to 4 middle schools this year. Had the opportunity through universal screening to identify students who may be struggling with risk factors associated with substance use. So that can be substance use itself, can be intent to use, mental health markers like anxiety or depression. This screener also lets us look at protective factors. So when we look at intervention and how to support students who may be struggling, this screener gives us information about how to build those protective factors, how to build on those strengths, It also has some opportunity for students to indicate goals that they may have, which are all ways that we can leverage the work in our support for students to get them where they want to be. So we utilize the screener in a universal way. We've been looking at 7th graders, but the kind of work goes along one classroom at a time till we have kind of worked through those students and we move on to the next one. All students that flag with Tier 2 or Tier 3 needs are provided a connection by one of our counselors and connected through a motivational interviewing approach to the important things that will help them get the help that they need. If they need a referral, though some of the referrals might just be to some additional counseling connection on site. It might be to a grad coach. It might be to one of our mentoring programs or community-based partnerships, as well as to those formal supports that we're familiar with when we're talking about this work. So far, we've screened 556 students, and it's really an opportunity to look at our equitable identification of needs. Classically, our counselors tend to get to the kids that walk in and identify themselves as needing support. This program offers us the opportunity to flag students who may not have self-referred. Students are telling us this is a really great opportunity for them to make connections with staff at school who, a lot of kids have said, I didn't really know who to talk to about this, but I'm really glad you asked. And so this is a program that I think is showing a lot of promise in our prevention work. Again, if those students do need some formal supports, we have a through line from this program and lots of other ways that we identify students that will continue. We have our care team meetings at the building level that help to identify students and monitor students through a team and collaboration approach. We also have our mental health care coordinators who are there to be making the formal connections in the community. And our substance use team that we had talked about last year has kind of folded into that work with our one remaining position. The services in the community that we've traditionally partnered with are reflected on this graphic, and I believe that has a link. We continue to rely on community mental health agencies and our prevention programming in the community to make those formal connections. We also have our school-based connections that we'll review in a few minutes when students do need more formal support. The student health survey data is really great for us. It really gives us a guide to kind of where are we at in the community with these needs? Are they growing? Are they not? Unfortunately, again, this year, the survey changed a little bit, so we don't have the year-to-year data that will help us see like year-to-year trends, but this still gives us a good picture of what's going on for our students. It's an anonymous survey, so we get some hopefully more accurate data looking at these needs as it relates to our 6th, 8th, and 11th graders. And then, we've been monitoring the connection opportunities within our programs and systems that we have available to students. We have our student support and wellness counselors I highlighted earlier who have made connections with almost 800 unique students at their buildings. That's in our 10 secondary programs, 10 support and wellness counselor position. We also have our mental health care coordination team who fielded 417 referrals. We have our elementary wellness centers that are supporting students in learning those regulation skills, learning about stress, learning about coping early on. And they're doing kind of countless visits and practicing with students who need some extra support with those skills. We have our family outreach liaisons who have made connections with families. We have our McKinney Venture team that's supporting our students who are experiencing housing instability. We have also prioritized investments in school-based mental health programming. So our Life Stance Northwest counseling associates and youth contact numbers are there, as well as the youth contact is now in our middle school as well. So those numbers are captured as well as our 4 high schools. We've also expanded through some special grant funding our partnerships with Latino Network ROSA program. and Portland Opportunities and Industrialization Center for some work with more at-risk youth, students who are seeing a lot of risk factors for substance use. So POIC is at Hill High this year. Rose is at our 4 middle schools, and offers some targeted mentorship, community outreach, family support in helping bridge connections for students that are served in those programs. And then we rely on strategic partnership with our community. So our prevention team at Washington County and the behavioral health team at Washington County, we lean on the Hawthorne Walk-In Center and Crisis Services, the mobile crisis team, as well as a number of other folks that are represented here to really help to partner in this work. I would say that one of the biggest opportunities for us is to continue to leverage the community for this work, because we really all have to wrap around our students who are experiencing these risk factors. The future of this work, I think, will lean on that a lot more. We meet new partners every day in this work and try to reach out and bridge those connections. Our mental health care coordination team's often working, diligently with our community to learn of new programming. Where are the wait lists? Where are the openings? Who's doing culturally specific work? How can we get our students connected? What's the best route and avenue for students and families connecting to the support that we have? And trying not to be gatekeepers of that information, trying to make that really available widely so that people know how, wherever their entry point, they know how to get connected to those supports. All right. And I'm open for questions if you have them.
Thank you. This is a very informative presentation. Kind of a niche question, just out of curiosity. I guess first I should ask these, the data on 6th, 8th, 11th, are those questions we designed or something part of a broader effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not our survey. It's the Oregon Teen Health Survey administered all over the state.
Okay.
And then Washington. Those were preliminary numbers. I have to say, I was supposed to say that our data tech was like, make sure they know it's preliminary.
Okay.
But it is tracking with our community numbers in Washington County as well.
Okay, so it's collected by the state and then provided to us. Okay, interesting. My mild curiosity was that I noticed that marijuana is pulled out separate from other recreational drugs as a question, distinct question. And I was wondering, since Oregon voters approved psilocybin for adults as a medicinal treatment, I wonder if they're going to pull out that as well, do its own question to see if that has caused any differential rate of that. Interesting.
That's a great question. I can definitely explore that with our team that works with the Oregon Healthy Teens or Teen Health Survey team.
Yeah, it's good data. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have a question per se, but I wanted to let you know that it is a shame that we don't have 150 brand new legislators sitting right here to hear what you just said. It is imperative that our legislators and our education, the state education committee, everybody understand that until we get this right, meaning mental health and substance abuse support, which is admittedly something that I didn't understand until I started working for social workers. But I understand it now because they do go hand in hand. They intersect in the life of children in ways that I never imagined, right? So I'm just saying that you need to get this information. I know you were just talking about the things that you're doing, and I realize that you're just advising us before. But we need to tell some other people. We need to tell the 150 new members in the legislature right now that this is where the future is. This is where we should have been talking about post-pandemic. This is what we should have been doing before the pandemic. And with partners like my employer, the Oregon Services, trying to come into the school and doing the things that we're doing, it's amazing, it's staggering, and yet it's so needed, it's so critical. So I'm just telling you to shout to the rooftops, go tell somebody else. Because the truth is, your message is not really here with us. Your message is in Salem. Your message is in the community. We have got to get this right. If we don't get it right, we're going to lose another generation of kids that are trauma-informed And we're still going to be counting the number of kids that were impacted by COVID, and substance abuse, and mental health, and all the things in our room. So that was my question.
Thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions? No? Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Our next agenda item is the financial report with District Financial Officer Scott Harrison.
I think I got it there. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Board. The Business Office and I have prepared the monthly financial report for your consideration. One item I did want to highlight to your attention this month is we received a fairly generous, we received a generous donation from the Ogden Family Giving Fund. It went to Glencoe High School for their robotics program. Just wanted to make sure that that was highlighted. Beyond that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions for Scott? No? We have 3 action items this evening. Our first is to adopt an inter-district transfers plan. Beth, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just wanted to let you know that I put a very easy to read copy of these open inter-district transfer slot recommendations in front of you. I apologize for that and for not providing reading glasses to those of us over the age of 17. It will be easier to read on the website where it will be posted once the plan is approved. I did just want to highlight a couple things. I anticipated a few questions that you might have, so I asked Katie to put together some data for me. So as you may recall, the recommendation this year to open up to 120 slots for students coming into the district and to open 70 slots for releases for students to leave HSD for other districts is exactly what we proposed last year. And just so you know, our experience with that last year was that we had 82 students request to come into the district and 71 requests to go. So that one additional student caused us to have to do a lottery, but we were very close on that. So, and just so you know how we kind of put all of this together, under state law, if a student moves during the school year, they are allowed to remain in the district that they moved from, if that's what they so choose. And that's what we say when we put them on a placement. So if a student, for example, moves in September from Hillsboro School District to Beaverton School District, they can stay in the Hillsboro School District the rest of the year. But then if they wanted to continue in the Hillsboro School District, they would need a release from Beaverton and an inter-district acceptance from the Hillsboro School District. So we take into account all those students that are in placements at our different schools and check with our principals individually to say, hey, you've got X number of students on placement, they're at these grade levels. If you want to hold space for them in the inter-district process, then, you know, we need to take that into account. So we look at students on placement, we look at historical trends, and then also just what we feel our system can reasonably absorb, and that's how we put together our plan. And we give several opportunities for our principals to review it and have feedback about their building. You'll also see for the first time, we've never done this before, but we also added kind of a separate line item for Hillsboro Online Academy's Homeschool Partnership Program, which is actually a pretty great program that allows students who are otherwise being homeschooled to access some of our programming through Hillsboro Online Academy. And we do have a dedicated staff member who is a liaison to those families. And there is currently a waiting list, so I know that Audrey and her team have been working on ways to provide a little bit more FTE so we can pull in the students that are on that waiting list and accept a few more. So
is it correct that you're saying there was, in terms of the number of students who wish to go out from our district, refused is 1?
That was last year, yeah.
Last year, yeah, and the number who came in who were refused is what?
None were refused because it was less than the number of slots we had opened. And then one other thing to keep in mind is that there is a hardship provision that goes all year round. So if somebody qualifies under a hardship request, then it can happen outside of this open enrollment type period that we've defined.
I find myself, I just informationally, I guess, for board colleagues, we talk about this every year and briefly, and then we don't think about it again too much. But I always find myself thinking I would be in favor of higher caps because, most of these students have a reason for this, and it's not wildly disproportional one way or the other, and so I feel bad for that one student. Would there have been any negative consequences if it had been 71, really? So I've listened to all the presentation. I'm not minimizing the importance of the input and feedback. I'm saying I feel like we probably could have a little bit higher cap if it were entirely up to me.
I know it's not a student enrollment report, but is it fairly safe to assume that when it's up to 2 with qualifications or up to 3 with qualifications compared to up to 10, that the buildings that say up to 2 or up to 3 are more full or closer to capacity than the other buildings are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Beth?
Yeah. So, I mean, not to put words in anyone's mouth, but just to respond to Patrick's comment, if that is something that a majority of the board would like to do, we could certainly modify the number of releases. And it doesn't have to be a large adjustment. It could be 75, for example, or whatever the board would like to do there is fine.
Once we adopt, so if we adopt this tonight, can that adjustment still be made?
You'd have to take another action.
Okay. So if we adopt this tonight as the action item suggests, and the request is within 5 or 8 of our cap, could we review it at that time?
You could review up, but you just can't review down.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes. So if we approve this action tonight, and we had 72 requests, instead of having a lottery, you could come to us and say, "Hey, you want to raise it to 75?"
Sure.
And we just have to take action as a board.
Sure.
Okay.
Rather than, I never know exactly how difficult changes are going to be and that sort of thing, but rather than amend it now, lean more, or just giving me the signal. Rather than amend it now, if you're comfortable, I would be interested in hearing, how many requests there are and giving us the opportunity to, if it's very close, adjust upward by 5 or 8 instead of requiring a lottery. If that's possible, like you were saying, I'm certainly interested in that. So that if it's a very close thing, when it was 70 and 71, it's like, oh, we can accommodate that one nice student. So.
I'm going to shock you, and I'm not sure I want to change the numbers. I'm talking. There we go. I'm going to shock you. I'm not sure I want to change the numbers. These are transfers in and transfer out. You're asking for permission to leave. Best wishes to you. But then when you come in, there's a difference. And we have people in our community that can't always go to the school that's right there in their community. And so I'm a little bit sensitive about that.
Yeah, we didn't turn anybody down.
We turned people down and one person wanted to go out.
Everybody wanted to come in.
Everybody.
Yeah, 70 below.
It was 80 something and the cap was 120?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but tell me what, I still don't understand why I would want to mess with that number.
I can move if you like to adopt this plan. I think we should adopt the plan. I think we should adopt the plan that's in our action item. I think what Patrick and I are getting at is that the limit of 70 outgoing is fine. If we have 72, maybe before we have to have a lottery for that, for the 2 slots or whatever. I guess everybody goes in, he picks up.
So
I would consider.
actually, so the lottery that we're talking about is actually the lottery to leave?
Yes.
Okay, I had it flipped in my mind
There
because
you
it
go.
wasn't making, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I take it all back. If you want to leave, I'm not going to make you stay.
But everybody who wanted to come in was able to come in.
Yes.
So I think really, to kind of summarize this, so we're not just being unclear, is that if it's not infeasible, when you know the number of people requesting, that you could share that with the board for our information, and then we could, if it's very, very close, we could consider raising the cap.
Before we move on, can you address why I care how many people leave?
Why you care how many people leave? Well, because they come with dollars. I mean, the reality is we
yes,
don't.
yes, I know that part, but I mean, yeah, but how can, I don't know, I'm trying to understand why we would force somebody to stay.
My recollection of this is that the history of this was a rejection of the notion that school districts should have completely open borders. And so school districts got together and decided that we would do like an intake, outtake, best guess at our capacity.
Right.
And therefore we don't just have like a free-for-all in Oregon.
Okay, so the idea is that we still want to maintain the fact that this is not a free-for-all, but you want to have a little bit of flexibility. Am I hearing you right?
That's right.
And we have to do it based on House Bill 2747 from 2013. It's like
Right, which is the one, okay. All right, I can be persuaded.
I move that the Board of Directors adopt the interdistrict transfer plan for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Watson, seconded by Director Thomas, that the Board of Directors adopt the interdistrict transfers plan for 2025-2026 school year. Is there any further discussion? Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Patrick McGuire.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Yvette Patoja.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is curriculum approval, K through 12 math adoption. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the proposed K-8 iReady math curriculum and 9-12 Envision math curriculum.
Second.
It has been moved by Director McGuire, seconded by Director Thomas, that the Board of Directors approve the proposed K through 8 iReady math curriculum and 9 through 12 Envision math curriculum. Is there any further discussion?
Just want to say again, I appreciate the rigor of the testing and like how obvious it seemed the choices were. So thanks to you and your team for doing all the hard work getting this ready.
Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Patrick McGuire.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Yvette Patoja.
Aye. Motion carries. Our last action item is Integrated Guidance 2025-2027 Plan Approval. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approves the 2025-2027 Hillsboro School District Integrated Guidance Plan.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Thomas, seconded by Director Watson, that the Board of Directors approve the 2025-2027 Hillsboro School District Integrated Guidance Plan. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I didn't realize it was a biennium. So this covers us for 2 years for our SA grant, essentially, or? Nobody online would hear you.
There'll be no shouting.
Encompasses in SSA our high school success, our SIA,
Oh, sure.
our early literacy.
Measure 98's included,
Yep,
okay.
the whole umbrella for the biennium moving forward in 25 to 27.
Is that newish or was it always that way?
Nope, that's how it has been.
Oh,
I mean, this is the second time we've put together an integrated guidance
Fair
plan,
point.
so I only have reference to the first one, but yes, it was the same.
A little on the spot. I should have asked this question ahead of time. Do you feel like the ODE efforts to streamline this process have been successful?
Well, here's the thing. There are some additional grants that have been folded into the integrated guidance plan as well. So that is our TSI, CSI school plan and our early literacy. Even though those are housed under one umbrella, there are still multiple reports that our team has to put into place on a quarterly reporting basis. So even though they're housed under one portal, the reporting process finds itself cumbersome. And I would also say for our financial team, they would, I think, also share that as well, as the quarterly report financially under that suite of grants also is cumbersome as well. So we have made recommendations to the state on some efforts of streamlining that. In addition to maybe the timing, could we go to just even twice a year on more of a a mid-year report and an end of the year report? So there are definitely some ways that we could be improving the streamlined process. And that is just for what I'm speaking to in integrated guidance. I think just reporting in general, I hope I have this right. I think there's 230 reports that our school district is responding at any given time every year. So that in itself is a cumbersome process.
I haven't made it all the way through the governor's proposed accountability bill yet, but the Senate Committee on Education will be considering that bill at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I don't remember seeing that in there yet, but like I said, I haven't finished it completely yet.
I was going to ask the exact same question because I was reading the governor's statement about her accountability bill just today, and it said we were reducing 110 grant programs to 7. I thought, oh wow, that sounds really great. So it sounds like maybe there's still work to be done though. But 110 to 7 did sound like, wow, that's good.
Yeah, that did sound great, and I haven't found that in the bill yet. But yeah, I'm not done.
I would also say, as we also look at hopefully some summer grant dollars coming our way, are there ways that we can also fold those types of pieces into an accountability structure as well? And can we report if there's identified goals and outcomes as we look at more of a comprehensive 12 months of support to make growth in those areas? Can we also be looking at ways of folding some of those grants and accountability metrics along the way too? So I know that we've had an opportunity to testify on summer learning. I know that we find ways that we can also be sharing this information at our state. I really do appreciate as you also share and advocate as well on a streamlined process for us too, because again, that is a lot of work that goes into any district, including ours, to make sure that we are accurate in those reports and filing those timely. So thank you for your advocacy as well.
So Brooke, in the alphabet soup of grants that you just mentioned, are any of them subject to federal?
Yes, there are 2 grants that are connected that are federal. One is the Perkins grant that helps to support career and technical education programs. The other is the targeted school improvement and comprehensive school improvement funding that also comes from a federal grant as well. So most of them are that state aligned through SSA, but we do also report under 2 federal grants. Just within that suite of integrated guidance, I should also say that. That's just the 2 that are noted under integrated guidance.
And has your team been engaging in some conversation should that change?
So just yesterday there was a Perkins meeting specifically around federal grant reporting and how do we align what was shared with us within that meeting to our integrated guidance work, and how do we kind of craft some of those responses for our application that aligns to the federal components, but also that state alignment as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're getting a little far afield from integrated guidance, but here we are at this moment. So I noticed you didn't mention the parental nutrition program that we use to provide meals to every student. So it's not part of integrated guidance. It's a lot of conjecture. How reliant is that program on the Department of Education existing or?
Well, so that is.
I've heard like that it's separate-ish.
That's my wheelhouse. I don't know if anybody has some information to share under nutrition services and the reporting around that. That isn't necessarily connected to the work that I'm doing, but if there's anything in my colleagues.
ODE has put together a nice update on federal action, so we are just using that to monitor. As of right now, the stance has been we are assuming all of those things are still in play that are supposed to come for like food services or our nutrition services, for our title funds that we get. We're sitting in a space where we are hopeful that that will maintain and not going down the rabbit hole of what ifs on that as of right now. Right now, we do know the governor's proposed budget of $11.36 million. We're following the ODE website to just track like what they know in terms of things that come out from the federal level and then what their response has been and where it falls for us. So right now, that's where we're sitting at, because you can go down a scary rabbit hole. And what we're really trying to do is think about what we're going to do moving forward into this next biennium, and we'll look at those things as they come factual for us.
And I apologize for making you go down the rabbit hole.
It's okay. You know what? We are here to support and have good conversations, and then we'll be okay.
Thank you. Rose, can we get a roll call, please?
Tian Kim.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Patrick McGuire.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Yvette Pantoja.
Aye. Motion carries. That concludes our agenda items and brings us to HCU and HEA report. Question?
Good evening, Chair Pantoja, Vice Chair Watson, Board members, Superintendent Ryman, and District Administrators. My name is Mary Kay Babcock. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a proud music educator of 28 years. I also have the privilege of serving as president of the Hillsboro Education Association. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that March is Women's History Month, a time to celebrate the incredible contributions of women throughout history, especially those who have paved the way in education. And as a woman in education myself, I'm proud to stand alongside so many strong, dedicated women who are shaping the future of our students and our communities. Congratulations to Hillsboro Classified United on their tentative agreement, their contract. I think that deserves a round of applause. I want to begin with the crux of my speech tonight with NEA President Becky Pringle said it best this past weekend at our NEA Leadership Summit in Detroit, Michigan. We must promote, protect, and strengthen education as it is the foundation of our democracy. The following is my summary of OEA President Reed Scott Schwalbach's update regarding today's news release of the United States Department of Education. Linda McMahon, the newly confirmed U.S. Secretary of Education, just made her major announcement calling the department's work its final mission. Today, nearly half of the staff were told that they were being let go. Combined with recent executive orders from the White House, this is creating fear and confusion while threatening the support systems our students rely on from pre-K through college. Dismantling the Department of Education would have devastating consequences. Title I funding for our most vulnerable students, oversight of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and Pell Grants that make college accessible for all are at risk. The department has also funded essential research, including literacy initiatives that take place right here in the Pacific Northwest that directly impact Oregon students. With 90% of the United States students attending public schools, This is an attack on the very foundation of our educational system. Here in Oregon, OEA is standing firm alongside our state partners, the Oregon Department of Education, the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators, the Oregon School Board Association, and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, as well as Governor Tina Kotek and the entire Public Education Committee. We're committed to ensuring that no educator in any role faces this alone. Just last week, Governor Kotek attended NEA's March 6th Leadership Summit Town Hall to discuss how unions and policymakers are fighting back and standing up for our students and educators. Let me also be clear. Executive orders, memos, and dear colleague letters are not laws. They do not require immediate changes to school programs or curriculum. And if there's ever a conflict between an executive order and federal law or the United States Constitution, the law and the Constitution win every time. Oregon schools will continue to uphold state-mandated policies, programs, and curricula, including anti-discrimination protections, state standards, and ethnic and tribal history requirements. Our power is in our voice and our collective action. There are steps that we can all take at the local, state, and national levels. One simple but critical action that I call upon everyone in this room and beyond to do is to contact your federal lawmakers and let them know how much you value the U.S. Department of Education and the programs that it supports. If you need support with this, I'm more than happy to help you with that. We cannot afford to be silent. Together, we must act to protect public education for all of our students. Thank
you. No, you're good.
Good evening, School Board, Chair Pantoja, Superintendent Ryman, student representatives, and cabinet members. My name is Kira Hartzell, and I am the Collective Bargaining Officer for Hillsboro Classified United. I stand here tonight with great excitement and more than a little bit of relief, celebrating with you the tentative agreement that was reached between our two bargaining teams last Tuesday, March 4th. Tonight, I brought a prop with me. This binder that every member of the HCU bargaining team has carried with them since November 2023. As you can see, it is full of pages of proposals traded back and forth between both teams over the course of 15 months of active negotiations. Some of these bargaining proposals, such as compensation, tend to catch broad community attention. But so much of the work that is represented in these pages has happened much more quietly and consistently over the course of the past year. It is collaborative contract language from both teams that provides safety and clarity for staff, ensures legal compliance, and helps set HSD apart as a destination district. When I addressed the school board in January 2024, at the beginning of our bargaining process, I spoke about bargaining as a labor of love. As we've been preparing to present this contract to our members for ratification later this week, I've had the opportunity to reflect once again on how much love for our classified staff has been poured into these pages. All of this work has a profound effect on the working conditions of our employees, and our bargaining team is incredibly proud to be sharing it with our colleagues for ratification later this week. As you consider your own votes for approval next week, please note that our team is deeply grateful for the collaborative bargaining process with our administrative partners, and we truly believe that this is our best contract yet. In other exciting news, HCU has been hard at work advocating for staff at the state level. Last Monday, March 3rd, Alicia Infante, our political action officer, along with a small team of HSD staff, kicked off Classified Appreciation Week with a trip to the state capitol. While there, Alicia spoke on behalf of House Bill 3357 regarding safety reporting, as well as representing classified voices on school meals for all and standardized classified job titles. You can catch Alicia's powerful speech to our political leaders on HCU's social media page, and it's well worth the watch. And it is also just the beginning of our advocacy journey. Our leadership team at HCU is eagerly looking forward to partnering with HEA and HSD to continue our advocacy efforts on behalf of our students and staff in the days and months to come. As I end my time tonight, I wanted to offer one final word of thanks to my fellow classified colleagues. Last week, we celebrated Classified Appreciation Week in honor of the more than 1,300 classified staff who keep our district running. As we love to say at HCU, classified staff clean it, cook it, fix it, drive it, paint it, teach it, type it, schedule it, plant it, file it. We support, love, and believe in our students, and we are proud to be HSD. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it brings us to discussion time with our student reps.
So this was probably the most efficient meeting yet, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate having all the data put out on the open slots, because I was always curious about this. It's something that anyone can go and find these meetings on YouTube and find stuff, but I didn't do that, and somehow I didn't know, and it's easy to be ignorant of it, so I'm really appreciative to be able to see it. I definitely think that there were some really good points made about people leaving the district as well. I think everyone had great discussions upon the numbers, and I think it was great that we have a board that can discuss things and think things out before we just approve it. Like, I really do appreciate that we have such a great, we work together really well, I think. And it's amazing to be a part of this as a student rep. I definitely think I'm really glad that I can spend my nights here and give my voice and just be here. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, so thank you.
Two things, I'll keep it brief. How do I put this? It's interesting going from my government class and studying how a lot of the Supreme Court rulings, they're, 5-4, it's very contentious, very, very hard for them to, form a consensus. And then come here and hear, agree. Everyone in line, just very little, the word for it, there's very little heated aggression and disagreement. Heated disagreement is the term I think I'm looking for. We can all come together and agree that this plan is a good step, if not the perfect step, it is a good step towards helping our school become a better place. And the second thing I want to mention is I also had the same question that Nancy Thomas did regarding the open slots for Hillsboro School District, and I too can be persuaded. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that and say that, oh no, what you were saying, yeah, before that, what were you saying? I got it. I think it's amazing that it's not that we all agree upon the same ideas, that we all agree. It's because we're all willing to create something that we'll all agree to. I think it's great that we find common middle grounds instead of just trying to do our own thing and just get enough votes to pass it. I mean, that's the wonder of a public school district versus any other board of directors of any other kind, political or not political.
Thank you. Superintendent Raymond.
Thanks for those reflections, Cal and Abe. I want to share appreciation for both bargaining teams that have come to tentative agreement on all the articles and the financials related to the classified bargain. Thanks, Chair Pantoja, for your participation. We should all be encouraged by a settlement that helps us stay competitive as a school district and is also satisfactory to our classified employees. So thanks everybody for participating and leading. I want to thank Francesca and Jordan and our team for improving the technology for reporting bias incidents in our schools and from home. And thanks to the board and staff for listening to our families and being responsive to the requests of families for improving our services. I want to thank our whole team around the math adoption, including Brooke for your leadership for the comprehensive and inclusive practice that you engaged in to get us to a recommendation that's going to work best for most students. Again, not a perfect solution. No math program is absolutely perfect, but I'm really enthusiastic about the conclusion of the math adoption process and the improvements that we're making at delivering math instruction in Hillsboro. So thank you for your approval of that. And then also, thank you for the community-wide engagement and the accountability work that comes along with our integrated guidance application. And I want to tell the board that from the governor's office to different school districts, folks are talking about our accountability document related to our strategic plan, which is a huge part of our integrated guidance application. And the way that we hold ourselves accountable here in Hillsboro, I hope, is exemplary for other school districts to learn from, just as we learn from them. And that as a state, we can improve, especially in math and literacy for our students. So thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you. We'll start with our board member online. Sheehan?
Just want to appreciate all the presentation and discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Logan?
I just want to tell the student reps that it took a long time to get to this this level of relationship with our board members. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of intention, and exactly what Abe, you said it really well about creating something we can all get behind and support, and that is hard to do. And I just want to commend all of my board members for always being willing to be open-minded, also for being supportive of staff, for asking questions. And I know sometimes maybe we don't ask questions in a public setting because we've already emailed ahead of time or we've asked beforehand, and so we come prepared, or we make sure that we help our staff prepare the materials based on the information that we were asking about. So there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that sometimes we don't like show in the public meetings, but it definitely takes it has taken a lot of work to build these relationships. So I just want to make sure that I say thank you to everyone, because we put a lot of time and effort into building those. You should have seen me and Mark in the beginning. He's like my brother on the board now. But I also just want to say thank you again for the presentations, for the activities that continue to come out, and then just a request maybe for a next update, if we can. I don't know when we'll know like graduation ceremony dates, but just thinking about planning for those, and if that could be something we can get sent out. Thank you.
Director Thomas?
Thank you. I had a couple of things that I jotted down. First, I wanted to say thanks to Francesca and Jordan and Beth and Audrey for their work in improving the bias incident reporting. I know it's been echoed before, but I want to go in a little bit more detail on finding out if people actually do watch these meetings and they actually do want to know. We have, well, Audrey and her team, Francesca and her team, everybody, they have confirmation of receipt of the complaint. That was big. Multiple points of reporting of bias incidents. That was big as well. Updating the search engine optimization for the incident reporting. That was very important, and thank you, Jordan, for that. And articulating the timelines of actions and investigation and the decision-making, for example, the 2 to 3 day response. That was really super important. And I remember some of these discussions just as a founding member of the Black Village Parent Advisory Council. So thank you for that. I definitely appreciate it. Secondly, as a member of the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, I'm urging our board and our community to keep their fingers on the pulse of current legislation activity in Salem. It is very important to connect with your representatives. We are begging and advocating for service level funding that is more than just accurate, will meet the needs of children and school districts of today, not 10 and 15 years ago. Please do that and be active in that. Thirdly, I'd like to say thanks to both of our unions, HEA and HCU, for their teachers and the classified staff for helping us to get to yes and a contract. We recognize that no one party can ever get all that they desire, but together we will always serve the children of our community to our best efforts. Please know that you all deserve at least $1 million per year, each and every person. And so we need to get on board to get the legislature moving so we can go in that direction. And urging all of our community to protect our neighbors so that we can remain individually protected. Let me explain. Last week, my staff reported to me that an Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement agent, fully locked and loaded and suited up, if you will, entered one of my 8 branches. Actually, it was the one in downtown Multnomah County. It impacted our staff. It impacted the clients in the lobby. And admittedly and thankfully, my instructions were followed. There was palpable angst about challenging a federal agent in this way, but they did it. And when they walked back out, they took that breath and they walked back out, and in their head, they were probably thinking, well, my COO said that I can tell you this. And what came out was, do you have a legal warrant to present to me, or do you have business here? The agent smiled and he walked out. I'm saying that to you to understand, to say again, that what is happening is real in our community, and it's happening to us if it happens to one. In order for us to be protected from unreasonable search and seizure, we have to protect our neighbors.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Director McGuire.
Thank you. There's so much good happening here in Hillsboro School District. It's, as always, a joy to be alongside all of you. Briefly, I wanted to mention 2 things. First of all, I appreciated the good faith thoughts shared by community member Mr. Everton in the public comment section. I think on a broad level, there is a section of, the more I read, the more I realize there's a section of society that believes that changes that have been made in instructional methods and delivery systems to focus on making sure no students are left behind and to focus on ideals of equity sometimes are perceived as having a negative impact on advanced students or those who may need more rigorous or challenging instruction. And so this was one, what was discussed by the member of the public was one facet of that. And my conversations with our team through the years have always left me pretty confident that we genuinely have plans in place and a deep desire to serve all students, including those who would benefit from more deeper and more advanced instruction. So my point is I'm looking forward in this instance, to taking those concerns seriously and asking questions as we discuss the math pathways and finding out how we are seeking to serve all students, including those. So I'm hopeful that there are times when you have to make hard decisions because values come into conflict and resources are scarce, but oftentimes you can include all perspectives and values informing our decisions. I think that's mostly what our team does. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as we discuss this further in the months ahead. And then finally, I wanted to mention that I'm so proud of our Hillsboro Classified Union for standing up for things they needed to serve our students, for their safety, well-being, for just, they shared what they needed, and they worked with our team here in the district, and they were able to secure those things so that in the years ahead, they'll be able to serve our students well. And so I want to congratulate them, and no one will be happier than me to vote to approve that collaborative document that came about.
Thank you, Director McGuire. Director Watson.
Thank you, and thanks to our admin team for not spending too much time down the rabbit holes of what if. don't pretend it's normal time. I get it. Half the Department of Education was told to go home. No one can ever remember the building being completely closed, and that's what's happening tomorrow. So we're definitely unusual things happening, but I think the example of what we saw upstairs is that our admin team is nimble and ready to take on whatever challenge faces them. So I have confidence in your ability to do that. And not spending too much time down the what if is probably a great way to go, but be ready. Thanks again to the tech team, as always, for helping facilitate my participation in my day job and still fully engage in a board meeting and then transition. So we've done a great job of hybridizing our meetings, and continued thanks to the tech team for making that happen. Speaking of my day job, it's been great to see so many members of HSD staff in the Capitol, Alicia being one, Travis, Brooke, and today Arsema was there. So it's great to see so many representatives of HSD in the Capitol advocating for our students. And like to Erica's point, I think our work is intentional. It's not an accident what you see happening and the way we disagree, but do it civilly and have conversations. May have new people on here. Well, not after May, July 1st, I guess. May have new people on here, and hopefully I'll get to continue. But if not, hopefully some of the traditions we've set in that regard will continue. That's all I can hope for. And to my colleagues, like if you have a chance, so glad we're completed both of our bargaining teams. Feels like it's a 36-month agreement. Took 15 months to put together. We start 12 months ahead. What do we start next week on the next one? Or we at least have a couple of months before we got to start again? It feels like we're on the cusp of having to do it again, but I appreciate that we've done it. And any of my colleagues who had the opportunity to serve on the bargaining committee, I highly recommend it. The board being in that room is super important to me. We are the only people in that room not being paid to be there. We sit with the admin team, but we're there as the voice of the community, and you'll get to know people on the admin team, on whatever the union membership is. You get to know them. You get to know what's working in our district. You get to know what's not working in our district, and you'll see, our admin team listen with open hearts and ears to go, oh, we didn't even realize that was happening. And in some cases, address an issue in Kira's giant stack of book that both teams have. Address it before the day is even out and go, oh yeah, how are we not doing that before? So you'll learn so much about the district and get to know so many people. If you have an opportunity to serve on a bargaining team, I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Director Watson. And I agree. It is a very insightful experience, and you get to learn much more of what the admin team does and what our teachers do and what they go through, and so that's really important. I wanted to say thank you to the cabinet team for all the work that you do for our students in our community. Connor, nice to see you. Welcome back. And I also wanted to say, I know it's going to be spring break soon, so I hope you guys have a safe and fun spring break. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 8:25.